Confessions Monday and Friday. It's 11:14. We'll be back doing Captain Scala tomorrow, but it's Monday, so let's do a Monday confession. And into our booth, Judge Jack
morning
is back. Having another inspired weekend. Judge Jody,
good morning,
is here to sit in judgment and still hanging around, even though he should have gone home.
Hanging around like a bad smell.
Judge Charles.
Hello.
Are you feeling forgiving, or...?
Well, there's been far too much forgiveness going on, if you ask me, recently, so I'm here to take a dim view of all this.
Down with all this kind of thing.
Unless, of course, I'm persuaded otherwise.
Okay. Today's tale comes from Deborah. If this sparks a thought in your mind, you know what to do with it. You send it to confessions@scalaradio.co.uk. Simon and the team. Several years ago now, our local pub held a charity event. I was just about to say that I could not remember what it was for, but as the theme was anything red, I'll take a stab in the dark and assume that it was for a Red Nose Day in years gone past. We were asked to wear red clothes and bring red-themed food and cakes. I do like to bake, and I thought I would have a crack at a red velvet cake, which is, as you know, all the rage. I found it is. I don't know where they suddenly
so
came
nice.
from.
I think I missed out on it, but then, as so often in popular culture, I've missed out.
We'll have to get you one.
It tastes of red velvet.
Oh, lovely.
You could probably get one now and claim it on expenses.
Oh, right, I'm warming to the
crucial
idea.
part of the meeting.
I found a recipe in one of my books, and I set to it. It all went well until I came to turn the mixture red to create the perfect-looking red velvet sponge. I'm not a fan of artificial colours and flavourings, so I found a natural colouring in a health food shop. Okay. I think it might have been beetroot juice, but it might have been pomegranate juice, or it might have been cranberries, or it might have been a mixture of all three. Whatever, says Deborah. I added a few drops to the mixture as per the recipe. Didn't seem to change the colour very much, so I added a little bit more. Then I added a little bit more, and a bit more, until I reached the desired shade of red. In retrospect, I think I might have used all of it, but I did think at the time I seemed to have used quite a bit, but it was a natural colouring and so therefore not harmful in any way, so I continued and created a very passable looking bright red velvet cake. The red event went well. We raised a fair bit of money with our cakes and barbecue and other jollities. But so many people had participated that there was a lot of food left over. One of our group worked at a retirement facility and asked us all if I think it's an old folks' home, I think. Retirement facility makes it sound very mechanical.
I was going to say, it sounds quite sinister. Facility.
Yeah. Anyway, asked us, hello to you if you're listening in a retirement facility at the moment, and asked us all if she could take some of our cakes there, which we were more than happy, obviously, for them to do. Nobody knew who had contributed what cake, but it didn't matter. I heard that the cakes were gratefully received by the retired folk, and the red velvet cake was pounced on first. The person who delivered their treat put her head round the door and asked if they were enjoying themselves. Well, she then screamed the scream of her life. What a sight there was to behold. The old folk slowly turned towards her and smiled their appreciation. It was described as a scene from Nosferatu the Vampire. One 90-year-old had blood inverted commas, dribbling down her chin. Another had it all over their white shirt. One memorable pensioner was smiling like a maniac with lumps of cake-like flesh visible in his mouth. The red velvet cake, it seems, had turned all the false teeth red. Blooded fangs were everywhere. If you've ever seen the movie Funeral Home, or Rabid Grannies, or The Brotherhood of Satan, it was like that. Has anyone...
I was going to say, is there a film called Funeral Home? Sounds like
Grannies.
a barrel of laughs, doesn't it?
Rabid Grannies. At least you know what you're getting.
Is that a film? No.
Yeah,
It's a bad dream, isn't it?
And The Brotherhood of Satan, I wonder...
It was the Brotherhood of Man who did very well in the Eurovision Song Contest once.
When they split up, they became the Brotherhood of Satan, and it was a lot more fun.
It's a natural progression.
Anyway, Deborah says, I never admitted that I was the baker of this particular offering. No one was harmed in the making of this story, and the shareholders of Sterident received a better bonus that year. Anyway, Deborah's tale of the red cake, which made everyone in the old folks' home teeth and mouth go bright red. Let's see what our collective make of that. I think Charles needs to go first.
But in a break with tradition, I'm very forgiving on this. In fact, I'm going close to awarding a medal for comedy value. This is marvellous. Recreating the zombie apocalypse with cake is great.
So basically, your moral principle is your moral clock is if it's funny, it's fine.
Yes, that's it. It's funny, and nobody died.
No, that's true. And
As far as we know.
And as Deborah says, it's all natural food colouring. So as long as it's flavoured and coloured with pomegranate juice and cranberries, Judge Jody.
That's what I was thinking. So Deborah's moral compass was obviously in the right place because she didn't want to make it with artificial food colouring. She was trying to do the good thing, and then just a comedic event came out of it. So, Deborah, I'm going to forgive you. I love it.
Right. Judge Jack.
Nobody said what the cake tastes like. All we know is
they
how it
obviously
appeared
loved it.
visually. I had a blue cake for my birthday when I was a child, and everything went blue, which was actually kind of more threatening than the red, because at least there, it's the red velvet, isn't it? Smooth. I think I can forgive. Because I think it was quite creative, and as you say, her heart was in the right place, which is what really
Yeah,
matters.
it was a kind
They
gesture.
obviously loved it. They devoured it.
You can't imagine what it would look like. They all turned round and grinned at the same with blood in their mouths, apparently. Anyway, so it's gone quite well for you, Deborah, in the studio. If you would like to comment as the people's verdict, if you'd like to text 64100, first one has to be Scala. Forgiven or not forgiven, it's Deborah's confession. If you have a tale to tell, it's confessions@scalaradio.co.uk. This is Scala. This is your antidote for all the shouty people on the news.
True.
That's what we're here for. Monday and Friday, you get a confession. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you get a Captain Scala. We'd love to hear from you. Nominations for Captain Scala, people who deserve a round of applause, bit of an accolade, bit of a spotlight. Send us an email, all the details about them and who you are and why they deserve a round of applause and a Scala mug. It's Jodie's job, amongst many, to send out the Scala mugs. Are there any Scala mugs outstanding?
Very important. I still have to send yesterday's one. I want to wrap it very carefully because I really liked yesterday's one. That birdhouse was amazing.
It was. And Jack's here as well, sitting from his culture bunker.
Yes, I've been released for the day.
Oh, have you? Okay, well, that's very kind.
Taken off the tether.
So here's today's confession, which doesn't appear to have a name. Do you remember where it came from? Well, let's just make up a name. Let's just make up a name. Let's say it comes from Frank. Okay, let's just say it's
Frank.
Because it's always a good idea to change the name anyway, just in case
Yeah.
people get upset. Okay, so it comes from Frank. Father Simon of the Collective, the time for procrastination is over. I need to seek redemption for my lapse of reason, which took place 7 years ago in Cornwall. It's one of those rare occasions where sunshine, a weekend outside the main tourist season coincided with no work commitments and no DIY projects. So myself and my wife took off to the north coast of Cornwall for a day of relaxation. We spent an idyllic day exploring rock pools, sunbathing and even paddling in the sea. So much so that I suggested to my wife that we should stay longer to watch the sunset and perhaps have something to eat. Now, I probably embellished this idea to the extent that my wife had visions of sitting in a little bistro, a glass of wine in hand as we watched the sun sink over the horizon, that kind of thing. I had more modest ideas. As it transpired, it being out of season and a Sunday, very few establishments were open, and as the sun was sinking lower in the sky, I became increasingly desperate in my search for food. Feeling very agitated, we pulled on to a large car park of a fishing village, and to my relief, I spied a fish and chip shop still open. I could feel my wife's displeasure. This was not what she had in mind. Do you know the word hangry?
Yes.
Do you get hangry? It's when you get angry just because you haven't eaten.
Oh,
You need to learn that, Jack.
It's my
Jack
my
definitely-
mid-morning berry bar right there,
Yes,
just
that's
before
right.
the bath.
Oh.
Saves him from getting hangry.
Well, I think that's what happened here to Frank's wife. She's getting very hangry. It's not what she had in my fish and chips. She wanted something more glamorous. But, says Frank, I was a man on a mission. We needed food now, and we needed to watch the sunset. 2 fish, 1 portion of chips, and 2 cups of tea successfully purchased. I returned to the car. Absent-mindedly, I set them down on the bonnet and went to the boot to get my coat. It was getting a bit chilly by now. Immediately, a flock of gulls descended onto the bonnet, and one, the size of an albatross, very enterprisingly, deftly took an entire portion of fish in its beak and flew off with it. This was too much. I ran to the front of the car. I was shouting and waving my arms around. And stupidly, I threw the car keys at the gull. Well, the general direction of the gloating gulls. And I shouted at the top of my voice, "You bird with no parents. You absolute word that shouldn't be used in front of children or on the air. You bunch of toiletry-related miscreants." And so on. You get the picture. It's fair to say that any words of Anglo-Saxon I had learned were now used to assault these feathered thieves. Plus, I'd lost my keys. That was, however, a small matter. In my agitation, I'd failed to notice the open-air church service, which was taking place in the car park, complete with preacher, congregation and keyboard player. My wife later informed me that whilst I was in the chippy, she sat listening to them singing hymns. It was a very peaceful picture, until I disturbed it with my loud cursing and profanity, which had coincided with their period of silent prayer. Perfect. As we walked across the car park towards the wooden bench on the seafront with our one fish, one portion of chips, and 2 cups of tea in polystyrene cups, the preacher solemnly intoned, "There goes a man who is not at peace with himself. We should all pray for him." And so they did. They prayed for me right there and then. And I'm grateful because after an hour of searching, I found my keys in a rock pool. But then that was basically, Frank, your fault. So I seek forgiveness not from the preacher who was able to use my outburst for prayer, but the poor innocent bystander who, as he got out of the car, was assailed by a battered cod, a set of keys as they flew past, and a flock of excited, noisy gulls. And I should say no animals were hurt in this. The very nice lady in the chip shop thought it so funny, she gave us an extra fish for free, and the sunset didn't turn out to be worth all that bother. And P.S., I'm loving the show. So there you go. In which case, you're completely forgiven as far as I'm concerned. But what kind of a fool throws a bunch of keys at a bird? Because, first of all, that's probably a daft thing to do anyway, in case you hit the bird. Yes. Although those birds are enormous, and if anyone, they do nick a complete ice cream, as many people who visited, particularly the southwest of England, will attest. Jodie goes first.
Frank, if that is your name.
Yeah.
I think gulls are really scary. They're huge. And I've been on Brighton Pier before. I had a waffle, and it's just...
Taken the entire thing?
Yeah, flew off. I was left in tears. And it was only last year. No, I'm joking. But I think you're totally right to just spur of the moment throw your keys, because you're probably terrified. They are really scary. And you were just trying to please your wife, do a nice thing. So, Frank, I'm going to forgive you.
You're a pushover.
You've said that before.
Oh, there's judgment here.
Judge
there's
Jack.
pressure. Well, why did he throw a key at a bird? Why didn't he throw one of the chips? You know, he's got a plate of chips.
What kind of
it's
weapon
less
is a
lethal.
chip?
The key is deadly.
Oh, I'm so cross I could throw a chip.
Yeah.
Have you not said that before?
No.
The key is a lethal weapon. I think it's sharp, it's serrated. I say there's intent there.
Yes.
And, you know, the poor gull was just going about its daily business. We can get fish and chips whenever we like, but that gull... He's got to fight for his food, so I'm afraid I cannot forgive that.
I can't forgive either, actually, now, because there's no ketchup or mayonnaise or anything involved there.
True.
So if you want to have your say on Frank's tale, it's 64100 and the first word is Scala, and your confession will be welcome. Confessions@scalaradio.co.uk.